Exactly, Valen. And President Trump says South Africa will not be invited to the 2026 G20 summit in Miami. He's citing a dispute over the G20 handover following the summit here in Johannesburg, which the US had decided to boycott. President Cyril Ramaphosa's office called the move regrettable and punitive and has blamed it squarely on misinformation. Let's look at the fallout with Dr. Oscar Van Heerden, Senior Research Fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg. Oscar, good morning. Welcome to the program. I was wondering how people like yourselves, of course, you were there front and center at the G20. We saw how things unfolded. We saw the diplomatic route that South Africa had to take in dealing with the behavior of the United States. When you saw Trump make this announcement, it wasn't entirely surprising, was it?
Hi, Iman. No, not at all. We knew that there was going to be some form of blowback. Obviously, we knew that as soon as Trump woke up the next morning, he was going to throw his toys out of the cot, and this is exactly what we thought. In fact, it came as no surprise that he immediately said that South Africa is not invited to the next G20.
The thing is, he can't do that, can he?
He knows that he can't do it, but he still wants to do the optics. It's exactly the same thing that happened when he sent a junior official to come and take the gavel from President Ramaphosa. He knows that it was insulting. He knows that, he was trying to make a statement. And now he claims in his statement that it was a senior official from the embassy. And we all know, in diplomatic circles, titles matter. Ambassador, first secretary, second secretary, and then, of course, charge d'affaires. And this was a junior official to come and take the gavel from the president of South Africa. It was insulting, and that's why I think the South African government reacted properly and said, well, we will do it off camera, behind closed doors, and with an appropriate official of the same level.
The memes were hilarious. Just as an aside, Oscar Van Heerden, I don't know if you saw, people were saying the Checker 60-60 guy should go and deliver the gavel. But back to serious matters. South Africa is a founding member of the G20. It participates in this multilateral organization in its own right. Are there any practical safeguards within the G20 mechanism to prevent unilateral punishment, such as the kind that Donald Trump is putting on the table, or even to be politically excluded by a host nation?
There unfortunately is not. There are no practical safeguards. The United States is the host country for next year's G20, and the host can, of course, even though it's not permissible, can say who he wants to allow into the country or not. We've seen in September this year with the United Nations General Assembly, the United States simply refused entry for the Palestinian Authority, refused entry to the Iranian delegation. And that practically means refusing visas, not recognizing the diplomatic passports, and so on and so forth. So, there will be protestation, of course, from various quarters. I'm sure that Prime Minister Keir Starmer from the United Kingdom, having to accept the gavel for 2027 and being part of the Troika, South Africa, US, UK, is going to have something to say. I do think that if Trump doubles down on this issue, BRICS nations are going to boycott the next G20. I think Brazil, Russia, India, and China is going to say if South Africa is not allowed to come, then we will also not come. And I do think, similarly, some of the G7 countries are going to raise objections because, remember, Iman, with Trump coming with the boycott of this G20 that was held in Johannesburg, he thought that some of his G7 allies would follow suit, would be supportive. And unfortunately, they did not. They made it very clear that they support President Ramaphosa's presidency of the G20, and they all came and attended the summit and, in fact, agreed on a declaration. Now, that sends a very powerful message to the United States, to the Trump administration. And I do think that some of them are going to say, this is not the done thing. You're not going to exclude anyone. Otherwise, we're also not coming.
Here's the thing, though, Oscar, President Cyril Ramaphosa last week, again, supported the idea of not engaging in boycotts, that the route to go was always going to be debate, that people should continue to be around the table. Does this kind of jar with that position that South Africa has? And the language of South Africa has always been very respectful, and we heard this said over and over again, that we manage our international relations with dignity. We still respect someone, even in the face of, this onslaught that Donald Trump has directed and targeted towards South Africa. So how do we support a boycott, even though it might be in solidarity with us?
Yeah, it's not so much supporting a boycott. I don't think anyone, including South Africa, is going to boycott. Remember, this is Trump not inviting South Africa. So I don't think countries are going to say we're going to boycott. Countries are going to say we will simply not attend because you are trying to pull the stunt. Change your mind, invite everyone, including South Africa, then we will have a G20. But if not, because today it's South Africa, tomorrow it could be Italy. The next day it could be China. It's just not what one does. I think that at the end, Iman, like Trump had egg on his face because of the diplomatic faux pas of wanting to boycott the Johannesburg G20, I think at the end of the day he's going to end up again with egg on his face for this diplomatic faux pas.
One of the perceptions and the read on Donald Trump is this cognitive dissonance that he has. I mean, he knows patently that there is no white genocide that is happening in South Africa. We have said it in one form or another. We've had international nations come to South Africa and move around freely and see for themselves, what's happening on the ground here. But once he picks a position, it's one that he's almost like a dog with a bone around. What do you think and as you assess this, what is his end game here? We've seen provocation for war and attacks on sovereign states, on so many different reasons. One wonders what's his real angle here. What do you think?
We all know, and the world knows, that the reason why South Africa why Trump is casting aspersions and wanting to create a negative impression and advancing these lies and untruths and so forth, is because South Africa decided to take one of its closest allies to the International Court of Justice, the State of Israel, for the charge of genocide against, the Palestinians in Gaza. This is front and center the reason why Trump is creating this narrative that the very same country that is charging Israel with genocide is supposedly also engaged in genocide on the Afrikaner population and minority in South Africa. And also, Trump, for the longest time, the US thought that the BRICS formation is just a club of countries coming together. They pose no threat. Well, he's now realized that actually it poses an immense threat. It's de-dollarizing. It is beginning to have trade within its own local currencies, not with the US dollar, and so on and so forth. And as a result, he's decided to target the junior member of the BRICS formation, which is South Africa, and making an example of South Africa. So for these reasons, these are the real reasons why Trump is taking aim at South Africa. And finally, I want to say, man, you don't have a massive State Department, a huge State Department with no less than three embassies in South Africa, one in Pretoria, one in Johannesburg, and one in Cape Town, that is not able to tell you the truth of what's going on in South Africa. Your Central Intelligence Agency, probably the largest intelligence service in the world, with satellites and everything, is not able to tell you that there is no white genocide happening in South Africa. It's clear that it's a political campaign. He's doubling down. He's serving his paymasters, which is the Zionists in America. And that's why he's doing what he's doing and sticking to his guns with this false narrative of South Africa.
It sounds like he's, weaponizing his G20 presidency as the next host. We've spoken extensively, as have you, around the receding of multilateralism through actions like this cognitive dissonance that, dominates the way that he manages things, an egotistical way of managing politics, really personality-based politics. What does it mean for the future of global governance. As you say, you know, his reasons, his motivations for doing this seem to be, again, really, really clear. They're not subtle. They're there for all to see. If you look at the BRICS formation, what does it mean for multilateralism? I know it's a question we've asked often over the last weekend.
We've seen a pattern, Iman. You know, the United States under Trump withdrew from UNESCO. They withdrew from the World Health Organization. They withdrew from the Paris Accord. They simply do not appreciate multilateralism, because multilateralism, which is the future, goes against the grain of a unipolar world where the hegemon and the most powerful country is the United States of America. Trump is continuing with his isolationist campaign, and he is ensuring that he takes the United States into irrelevance. We've seen it with this G20. This was the multilateral gathering where the world basically said to Trump, "We are tired of your nonsense."
And there you go. And you saw the fruits of what happened afterwards. Oscar, thank you for your time this morning. We do appreciate it. Enjoy your Friday. Oscar Van Heerden is a Senior Research Fellow at the Center for African Diplomacy and Leadership at the University of Johannesburg.